Hello everyone, it's Benny here, and to start today's lecture, I'm going to tell you to use your imagination again. So imagine this scenario. It's a Monday morning, and let's say by 9, traffic is already building. You're supposed to get to work before 10, and just the thought of work drains you even before you leave the house. But then you remember that the work that you're going to go and do, it is the work that you like to do, that you actually enjoy what you do. And then you start to realize that there are some people that they don't even like what they do at all. So they wake up, they have to face traffic, and they're still feeling unmotivated. But have you ever thought about what makes the difference between you that feels motivated because you like the job and other people that don't feel motivated because they don't like the job? Have you ever wondered about that difference? Again, that is where vocational psychology comes in. More specifically, the topic that we're going to be discussing today, and that is the psychological aspect of work. We are going to be discussing how the work environment, personal traits, and job design can impact performance and job satisfaction. Then we're also going to be speaking about how Frank Parsons' trait factor theory, there is Frank Parsons' trait factor theory, how it helps people find the right job fit. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to employ someone that hates their 9 to 5, or nobody wants to employ someone that does not like the job that they're doing at the point. So now let's dive in straight to the lecture. I hope you guys came with your notepad, your listening ear, and your Bible. Oh my god. Now, what exactly is the psychological aspect of work? The psychological aspect of work refers to the interactions between and among different aspects of your work environment. Now, your work environment is divided into 3. Your work environment is divided into you as a person, divided into the job that you do, and is also divided into the organization where you work in. So there are different aspects of these divisions that can affect your psychology as an individual. The first thing I want you to know is your job isn't just about what you do. It is about where and how you do it. Because all these things interact with each other and they can affect how you think and feel and act in the job that you currently are in. Now, let's first of all explore the aspect of the individual. You as an individual, what are those factors that can affect your work behavior? The first thing that you need to know that can affect your work behavior as an individual is your skill, your interest, and what you need can determine how well you fit into a job. So at the point that you are currently working, what are you interested in? Is it that you are actually interested in mechanic work, but you find yourself in a banking job role? What exactly are your skills currently? Is it that you lack communication, but you still find yourself in a banking work role? And what exactly do you need? Is it that you need a lot of money, and that is why you are working in the banking sector? All these skills, interests, and needs of an individual, what you need, what you are interested in, and the skills you have can determine how well you fit into a job. Now, there are other things too that can affect. Or let me explain more. In terms of your skills, somebody that is naturally calculated, somebody that's really, really like maths, somebody that if you give the person information, the person is able to do this. That kind of person is naturally an analytic person. And if you put the person in the position of a data analyst, the person can excel. Somebody that likes to speak, that likes to communicate, somebody that likes social interactions can actually thrive in HR or even in sales. But imagine somebody that doesn't like to speak, that doesn't like to communicate, somebody that doesn't like, there are some people that don't like to speak early in the morning, and then the person needs to get to work by 8 a.m. and then the bank is resuming by 8 a.m. and that person is expected to speak to 5 customers before 9 o'clock. Do you think the person would thrive very well within that workspace? It might actually end up in a situation where it will get messy for that individual. So you need to consider your ability and competence. Another thing that can affect work behavior is needs and motivation. Now, let's say you have a very strong desire to be financially secure or financially stable. You are someone that might likely prioritize stable jobs, not jobs where it's on and off, not freelancing jobs where you're not sure that you're going to get the job, because needs are the most basic elements of motivation. And what you need can determine your attitude and your behavior. Imagine you are working, let's still use the banking sector, and you know in your heart of hearts and mind of mind that you need money. You know that they must not sack you. What do you think you will do? Of course, you're going to do everything within your capability to ensure that there is no comma in your record. You want the reports of your work behavior to be smooth and sweet. So you will do everything to have a good and a great work attitude at that point in time because it is aligning with your needs and motivation. Some people might actually also like stable jobs. For example, in civil service, I think they don't sack. I think it's very rare for them to sack. Some people that realize this, they would tend to work in organizations like that where they know that it's really, really, it's on rare occasions that they tell their staff to go. So That's also a very important factor. Another important factor is interest and values. What are you interested in? What do you like to do? What comes naturally to you? What are your values as an individual? Somebody that is great, somebody that likes to draw, somebody that likes to design, somebody that is very imaginative might might start to feel suffocated in an accounting job, in that banking job, because it can be a very repetitive job. Working in the bank can be a very repetitive job, and creatives are usually spontaneous. They like to do things, and the person might feel suffocated within the banking sector, but might actually thrive and make the millions and billions that he has been looking for if it was to maybe change to being a graphic designer. So those are factors that can affect, those are personal factors that can affect work behavior. Another part of the work that can affect work behavior or work psychology is from the organization itself. Now, what are the company policies? What is the workplace culture that is within that organization? You got a job, you are working at the organization. Is it that the company policies are very suffocative? Is it that the company policies do not protect their staff? I personally have worked in an industry where I did not feel protected by the policies of the place where I worked at. And this can lead to demotivation because you're like, if you people cannot protect me, so what exactly am I doing here? Another thing about company policy can be that there might be that policy that, oh, promotions will only be given if you know somebody that knows somebody within the organization. It can lead to demotivation because you're like, you're working hard. For someone that has been actually working hard, you're working hard and there is no sign that you are working hard. You'll be like, what exactly is the point? So that's also something that is very important, and from the organizational perspective, that can affect work psychology of their workers. Another thing is workplace cultures. There are some industries that do not really care about your work-life balance. They just expect you. If they tell you to come by 5 a.m., you should be there. If they tell you to leave um the environment by 12 a.m., you should leave them. You shouldn't leave before. I was hearing an experience of military nurse. I don't know if it is the Navy or something, but it was being said that if I don't know their rules, but like if the head nurse tells any of the junior nurses to stay behind, they have to stay behind. This type of workplace culture can lead to burnout if they're not careful. But if you notice, in companies like these upcoming fintechs where they do team bonding and they actually go out to have fun, you'll see that you'll notice a higher level of job satisfaction and enjoyment amongst the employees. So these two, both company policies and workplace cultures, are factors that can affect work psychology. Now let's go to the aspect of the job that can affect the psychology. The thing aspect of the job is that your job can be categorized into two. It can be categorized into the job context and then the job content. Job context with an X basically means, or it translates to, the work environment. Is it that you're staying in a poorly ventilated, a noisy office? Is it that the workspace is cramped? Those little things that employees might not really count as important can actually subconsciously, unconsciously, and even consciously affect the psychology of their workers. Because imagine entering a space where when you enter, you feel suffocated. It is hot, it is loud, and it is just jam packed. Productivity will obviously drop. However, if you're coming into your office and you're seeing bright lights, you have your table to yourself, there is just this comfortable feeling in the atmosphere, motivation levels would actually be higher. So your work environment is very important and can affect the psychology of the worker. Now, another thing that your job has, another important aspect of the job is the job design, and that is equivalent to the job content. What does your job entail? Does your job entail repetitive work? Is it boring? Do you see it as boring? Do you see it as something that is very, very easy that you can do and you close your eyes, you can do? Now, the thing about it is that job roles are supposed to be a little bit challenging, because when job roles are a little bit challenging, it motivates the individual to do better. It shouldn't be too challenging, it should just be a bit challenging. Because if it's too challenging, it can also have an effect. So the nature of work can influence how an individual perceives and reacts to the work. There are different kinds of work-related outcomes that these different psychological aspects of work can lead to. So you have burnout and mental health. If employees find themselves in toxic environment in the sense of maybe they have bosses that are always micromanaging them, there's just too much work to do, the environment that they're even working in is not even motivating, everywhere is just loud, everywhere is hot, everywhere is jam-packed, it can lead to stress on the employee's part. So it can lead to employee stress and burnout. Productivity is going to drop. The employees are going to become very, very tired, they're going to become burnt out. And then at the end of the day, the organization would not make any progress or profits. So that is one outcome of a toxic environment. On the other hand, if the environment is actually quite chill, and the employee is satisfied, the employee can become more productive. For example, let's take the example of all these delivery people. I know a lot of people have had drama with delivery men. Even I have had drama with delivery men. But I was thinking that maybe these people, maybe because of the sun. I think the sun self is something that is a toxic work environment. Have you seen this one? I think it's a toxic work environment. But real facts, real word. If maybe Jumia does a little bit like a car kind of what's it called now? Okada, I don't know, but something innovative, something that would not put too much stress on the drivers. Maybe, just maybe, by the time they come and deliver your goods, or maybe by the time they are going to deliver goods, they would be a little bit more productive in how they approach, or more in a way, better in how they deliver their goods and their services. Somebody that feels like they are receiving the fair pay and maybe incentives are usually more likely to be motivated than those people that are struggling with salaries. I think there was this experience of also in the hospital where people were not getting paid. I think nurses weren't getting paid, and you see how bad the services in the public hospitals dropped because of this. It's a real thing. So those are related outcomes that can come from a toxic environment and a very, very productive environment. Now we're going to be looking at Frank Passen. Who exactly is Frank Passen, you might be asking? Well, Frank Passen is actually regarded as the founder of the vocational guidance movement. That is what he is most known for. He is also known as the person that developed the trait factor theory. And what the trait factor theory does is that it matches people with jobs based on their abilities and their traits. That is why at the center of Passen's theory is the concept of matching. So it's basically that they're matching individuals with jobs that would be best suited on their personality type. The basic idea is that when you match with the work that you like, the work that you find a little bit challenging, and the work is placed in an environment that you find very, very comfortable, and it also matches with your personality, it will lead to greater success and satisfaction. It will lead to greater success and satisfaction within that job industry. Now, I want us to take a break and imagine that you are done with school and then it's time to enter the labor force. You finish studying psychology now, but for getting out, your parents say, no, don't go and do psychology. There's no money in psychology. Go for a government job. It is more secure. You are sure to get a job fast because I know one or two persons. But then other people are now saying, you want to do government job. Is that not old school? Go the new way now. Go and learn tech. You can learn coding. You can do this. You can do that. They start making suggestions. Meanwhile, you as an individual, you like music. You like creating things. You like creating things from scratch. What do you now do? Because you're having different suggestions. Go to government, learn tech. You want to do music. You want to become a creative. This struggle is the reason why Frank Passen developed his trait factor theory that we'll be looking at now. He believes that career choices shouldn't be made based on pressure, luck, or random guesses. Instead, they should be based on three things: knowing yourself, knowing the job market, and then making a logical decision. Let's now start to break down how this theory works and why it still matters today. The first idea is that before any occupational decision can be made, people need to understand their individual traits. They need to understand their strengths, skills, and interests before they can now decide on the career path to take. For example, if it's that you love mathematics or you love problem solving, cybersecurity might actually be a good fit. If it's that you naturally like talking to people, sales might actually be a good fit. Or if it's that you like making content, a social media content strategist or a social media whatever might be better suited for you. So you first of all have to break down, what am I naturally good at? What comes to me naturally? What skills have I already built? And what am I interested in? And then when you're able to identify this, you can now start exploring careers that would resonate with your strengths, skills, and interests, SSI. Now, the next idea that Passen pushed out was knowing the job market. You need to have a knowledge on the kind of jobs that are available and what is trending. Now, you have to understand the demand for jobs and then for career opportunities. Imagine somebody that goes to that studied engineering or is currently studying petroleum engineering. The person must first of all consider, are all jobs still in demand? Or maybe they give the person the job. The person has to go and find different current career routes that he can use after he's done with school. He has to look for the jobs that are currently still in high demand and the ones that have gone still, that are irrelevant in the job markets. Now, the third idea that Passen pushed out is that the individual has to make a rational and objective judgment about the relationship between their individual traits and the labor market. So now in the first two steps, the individual has taken their time to understand what they are interested in and the skills they have. And now they understand that, these are the jobs currently in demand within that are like in line with the current skills that I have and the current interest that I have. Now, the individual has to make a judgment. They have to make a judgment they have to choose a career that is based on rationality and logic. So they have to do like, this matching thing that we do in primary school where they'll be like, oh, okay, round, and then they'll be like apple. So you have to match, is apple round or is it the orange that is round? Things like that. You have to do that matching. And most people make that mistake because most Nigerians today usually go into roles like medicine or engineering because of prestige and not because of passion. It's not because it aligns with what they want to do or what they naturally are good at, but it's because of that, hey, I'm a doctor, I'm bringing glory to my parents or whatever. I don't know. And the thing that happens is that it leads to frustrated doctors because they don't like what they do. They just do it for the name. Parsons' theory was basically suggesting that you have to make career decision based on how much you fit into that career, not just on external pressures, not just because your parents said you should do this, or not just because someone suggested that you do this. Now, that the Parsons theory, the trade factor theory, operates under the assumption that it is very possible, it is 100% possible to measure or get a measurement of an individual's skills, ability, talents, and it is also possible to get the attributes that are required in a specific job. So you need to know what this individual has already and what this job is requiring. And when you have these two information, he assumed that it is very possible for people to be matched to an occupation that is a good fit. He also said that when someone is matched to an occupation that fits their skills, their ability, their interest, the person would be at their best level. The person will be more productive and they will perform best in that job role. Parsons further went on to write a book which is known as the Choosing a Vocation book. And inside that book, he was saying that for someone to be successful in the career search, the person needs to counsel either personally or professionally. So the person can either sit down and do the analysis by himself, or the person should seek professional help. And he provided 7 stages that a career counselor can use if and when clients come up to them. The first step is to gather personal data. The career counselor has to, first of all, create a statement about key facts about the person in relation to previous experiences, maybe with work, personality type, interests, skills. The counselor has to know all the things. This counselor has to gather all this information to know about the individual. Now, once the counselor has gathered the personal data and has identified all the facts about the person's skills, experiences, and aspiration, the next thing is self-analysis. Now, the self-analysis is basically a self-examination that is done in private. Usually, there are some settings where the counselor, after the first meeting where the counselor gets all the information he's supposed to get, the counselor can give the client an assignment to answer some questions, some reflexive questions. Or, maybe what do you do in your spare time? What do you find yourself doing in the spare time? So the person is able to go back home and reflect and come back with answers. Or it is during the next visits that the career counselor has face-to-face interviews with the individual and discusses about the interest. So usually open-ended questions are used in this part, and the client is encouraged to be truthful because it is at this point that results might become skewed. The result of the treatment might become skewed. So the individual is encouraged to be truthful. That's in all these answers, because every interest that is being said at that point by the client can impact the choice of work that might be advised. So it is very important that the client is truthful to both the counselor and to himself. Now, the third step is with regards to the client's decision. This client decision basically might reflect in how the person answers questions. So maybe the person is saying, oh, I like to do this, but I'm more, I like to go to work in a cold place. The answers that the person give, when the counselor is hearing what the client is saying, he might get an idea of the client's own decision and choices. The counselor should also understand that the choice of vocation is not in his hands. Instead, it is in the hands of the client. So that is a very important thing that the counselor has to have in mind. Then the next step is the counselor's analysis. After everything has been done, after the data has been collected, the personal data has been collected, after the self-analysis has been done, after the counselor has noted the client's inclinations and decisions, the counselor now has to test to see if where the client is leaning towards, the career the client is leaning towards, is in line with the main quest. And what the main quest is basically is what the person wants to do. Is it in line? Is it actually gelling with what skills the person has, with what interest the person has? Imagine somebody that the person is an individual that doesn't like boring tasks. The person likes being creative. The person, if you tell the person to think on the spot now, the person can come up with out of the box kind of solutions for you. Now imagine this person now says, "Oh, I want to be a virtual assistant." Now being a virtual assistant is actually a very nice job. But the kind of VA he now says he wants to do is he wants to do general administration VA. For somebody that is creative, that might not necessarily work out. And it is the counselor's job to fish it out, to break everything down to the barest minimum, to the most basic units. So the counselor has to see this person's skill, this person that likes to be creative. Okay, he likes to be creative, but this general VA that he's saying he wants to do, general VAs do repetitive work. He cannot do repetitive work. He starts to do compare and check. Then after the compare and check has been done, the counselor will now have to become familiarized with the industry that the client wants to enter, the field that the client wants to enter. So he needs to, the vocational counselor needs to have a lot of information about different industries, different vocations that are currently available. So that as at the time he's hearing what the client is saying, he is already thinking of suggestions of advice that he can give to the individual, so that the career choice or the career path that the individual wants to take, that the client wants to take, would be in line with his interest, and then the person would be able to thrive. So for example, now let us still use that VA thing. As at the time that as at the fifth stage, the counselor should be aware of the different kinds of virtual assistants that exist. There are different kinds of virtual assistants. There's a general administrator, there's a general VA. There is the social, there are VAs that specialize just in social media. There are VAs that specialize just in graphics. There are VAs that specialize in project management. So the the counselor has to be aware of all these specializations. He has to be aware of extra trainings, extra certifications that can be used. And if at the point of discussion, the counselor doesn't know, it is not a one day thing. The counselor can actually go and do his research. Then when he is able to gather list of maybe trainings, apprenticeships, industries, and vocations that can fit into the original interests and skills of the client, then the counselor would advise, and that is the next stage. The next stage is the stage where the counselor gives recommendations, because it is in the fifth stage that the counselor would first of all go and do research to know what and what is available. Then he would inform the client. So it is at the fifth stage that the client is learning about different job trends. The client is learning about different industries, different vocations. He is seeing the options that he has. Then in the sixth stage, the counselor would just recommend. The counselor is not telling the client that, oh, this is what you should do. But instead, the counselor is saying, based off of your interest, the interest that you said you have, your self-analysis reports, and the way you have answered questions, based off of those informations, there are pathways that you can take. You can venture into this, you can venture into that. Now, let us use the VA example. When a counselor wants to tell the individual that says he's creative, but he still wants to do VA, if you say something like that, the counselor can now be like, oh, okay, there are different kinds of VAs. But based off of your interest, the ones that align most would be maybe social media VA and maybe graphics VA. So now those are options that they are presenting to the clients. It can recommend that out of all the VAs that exist, these two would be best suited to your interest. And it is at this stage that both the client and the counselor has to have a broad-minded attitude, because there are so many options to choose from. But then logic and clear reasoning are very important at this stage, because it is 2 plus 2 that you guys do. 2 plus, and that 2 plus 2 must equal 4. Not that 2 plus 2 is giving 5. It must equal 4. This thing that the individual wants to do, and the thing or the recommendation that the counselor is giving, and the interest that the person is interested in, his normal interest, should align with themselves. And after this stage is the last stage. This is the general helpfulness. This is the stage where the counselor will now help the clients to fit into the work role that the client chose. Remember, the counselor doesn't choose. The counselor advises. The counselor gives recommendations. The counselor guides. So after the client makes a decision on which pathway he wants to take, the counselor will now help the client to fit into there by giving him maybe access or opportunities to maybe go to trainings, or like mostly access. Give the person the information and then give the person assignments to, oh, go and work here, like go and do this, go and do that. So that is how the counselor is going to help the client to fit into that work. And then the individual at that point in the stage 7 would reflect and make adjustments as needed. So these are the 7 stages or the 7-step model for career counseling. Let's do a little bit of revision. The first stage is personal data collection, where the counselor is collecting personal data from the client about his skills, experiences, and aspirations. Then the second stage is self-analysis. This one is self-introspection. The counselor would ask open-ended questions about the client's interest and strengths, and the client has the responsibility to answer truthfully, because anything he says about his interest can affect the, in quotes, results of the treatment. Now, the counselor also has to take note of the client's decision, the initial leanings, the initial choosings of career that the client has picked maybe in his mind before. The counselor has to be aware of that because it is the individual, that's the client, that is going to make his own career choice. So the counselor has to be sensitive to that information. Then in the fourth stage, this is where the counselor's analysis comes in. The counselor evaluates the person's choice to see if it is in line with his interests, skills, and aspirations, which moves on to the next part, where the counselor would do a bit of research about the vocational opportunities, the industries, the trainings, and the apprenticeships that are available that the individual can choose from. Then the counselor tells the client that these are the options that you have. That's stage 6. These are the options that you have. But based on your interest, this might be the recommendation that I'm going to give you. I'm going to recommend you go into this and this. And then the counselor advises. The counselor has to be very logical, and the counselor has to have clear reasoning and also a broad-minded attitude. A broad-minded attitude should also be encouraged in the clients to be open to new experiences and new information. So now, after a career choice has been made by the clients, what the counselor would do is to help the clients to adjust and fit into the job role as needed. The fact is that person actually did a very nice job in the whole idea that he brought up. That once you know the person's interest, you can match the person to the best job. It was, to be honest, it resonates with me because maybe because of the current workspace right now, and we're seeing people that shouldn't be working in a certain place, the way they work and the output of the work. For me, it resonates really deeply. And yes, I think Person did a really good job in coming up with this straight factor theory. But the thing about it is that for every theory that comes up, there would be criticisms. And the criticism for Parsons' theory is that maybe before, I don't know, but maybe before, the job market was predictable. That if they say, oh, this is going to happen, yes, it's going to happen. But the thing about it is that right now, the job market is not predictable. If you go to school and you study medicine, maybe based off of your interest and everything, and then you study medicine and you're like, oh my God, I will be the best doctor that ever existed. The thing about it is that you might say you want to go and work and you're looking for a job in the medical line and you're not going to find. You might not find any medical jobs. Or then maybe you like sewing, but you're not able to have the money to buy a sewing machine. So there are unpredictable things that can happen. The market is not predictable, meaning that people must adapt. People must be prepared to change to the situations that they are facing. The assumption that Passing used when creating his theory was that the labor market or the job market had a degree of stability, but in reality, it's not stable. It can be a certain way right now and then it changes in the next 2 months. That's how unpredictable it is. And in the real world sense, let us use the example of cybercrime. Now, cybercrime has always existed. Let us not lie. Yahoo, Yahoo, everything has always existed. But it wasn't as common as it is right now in Nigeria, where you're hearing that billions are being extracted from government agencies, or millions have been extracted from banks, or this bank is crashing. Like, you're hearing more and more common news about cybercrimes. And that is why the cybersecurity field is one of the fastest growing fields right now. Cybercrime analysis, cybersecurity analysis is currently growing right now because the need for cybersecurity analysts is increased than it ever was before. Do you understand? So that is the criticism. I think that is the major criticism of the trade factor theory. Another limitation of the trade factor theory is the subjectivity of results. Now, imagine you are telling somebody to go and say his personal experience, and that's why I said you have to tell the client that, still, Benny, you have to be truthful in your answers. If you're not truthful in your answers, the results will be skewed. But there's also always that bias, that subjective bias in any kind of subjective test that you're doing, because the person can maybe be defensive and then say, oh no, maybe the person likes smoking. That's actually an interest, but then the person doesn't say he likes smoking because he's scared of how you're going to judge him. So all those self-report measures can be very, very subjective. That's also another limitation. So now I'm going to give you another assignment. I know people had assignments in the first class. I remember. Did you do it? But anyhow, there's another assignment right now. The assignment that you're going to do is to find more limitations of this trait factor theory. You need to go and find at least 6 limitations. I've already helped you out with 2. So go and find out 6 extra trait factor theory limitations that can help you out, or that you can just have at the back of your mind. And with that, we come to the end of the class for today. The psychology of work basically explains why. This is a recap, by the way. The psychology of work basically explains why some people thrive in their jobs while others struggle. And Frank Passing now decided to create a theory that helps to match people to the right jobs. But the thing about it is that we must be very, very adaptable, because the job market is an evolving kind of market. And ultimately, to be honest, for you to have a fulfilling career, you have to know yourself. You have to be able to understand your options, and then you have to make informed delivery decisions. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next class. Bye.